It's nefarious, man. Like, the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship. Hey, it's Ronsley. In the last couple of volumes, I noticed that I have been talking a bit more than I'd like to. So for the next few volumes, I'm going to try and narrate less. I kind of want to give you more of the guest and less of me. I would also like to give you more space within this show. More space to process, more space to feel, and more space to introspect. Every time I talk about having 2 master's degrees, I feel a sense of pride for having to, and a sense of how immaterial they are as well. I feel so conflicted about being so educated that I don't really like talking about why I went down the path of getting 2 degrees. Because I have a bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering, and 2 masters, one in business and one in software engineering, as well as a diploma in financial services. I was so uncomfortable talking about all this stuff until I met Doug, because while I call him Doug, he actually is.
Dr. Doug Brackmann. I have 2 PhDs. I have a PhD in organizational business psychology and also a PhD in clinical psychology. I did them, I see you smile and laugh, and yes, it is ridiculous. It's because I'm profoundly insecure and believe that all this education would actually help me feel as if I knew something. And, the core of that imposter syndrome, and I think we're going to be talking a bunch about today, propels us to greatness.
To say that Doug got my attention in the opening minutes is kind of an understatement, because he did just say that imposter syndrome propels us to greatness. Okay, so this is new ground here. Doug, you couldn't possibly feel like an imposter with 2 PhDs, could you?
But as I walked out of my dissertation defense, I could clearly hear my monkey mind, clear as a bell, say, haha, they bought it. Often what people miss with intuition, we have a external function of senses, sensing what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we touch, kind of reality. And then we have intuition. And intuition is an external function. It's not a feeling. It is a sense.
Did you know that your intuition is a sense and not a feeling? Let me give you a bit of context. Doug taught me and guided me to meditate at gunpoint in Park City about a year ago, which actually taught me a vital lesson of appreciation. And as exciting as my experience was, you should experience it for yourself, because any amount of words couldn't prepare you for what you are going to learn about yourself by working with Doug. And obviously more about guns later in the show. Doug, tell me about this sense of intuitiveness.
And so much like the weather, you can go out and sense the weather. And then you can judge it. Is it good, bad? I have feelings about the weather, but the weather is the weather. Intuition is your intuition. It's a different sense. Honing that sense is something that we can become very good at. This thing called the vagal nerve, the vagus, and it is the 10th, 11th cranial nerve. It is our intuitive gut instinct. And so there's tons of research coming out about it, but it really is the original worm brain. It really is the original worm brain.
What? Break that original worm brain statement you just made down for us, Doctor.
Yeah, and so we have this, and it goes in 2 branches. We have a dorsal vagal, meaning back, and it goes down comes out of our brainstem and runs down our back, and then wraps itself around our guts. And it's our gut instinct. Right. And it's fight or flight system. And so when we get scared, our gut tells us and then responds by sending blood to arms and legs, that something is up in the outer world. And we can now start to measure this, and it's really trippy. The other, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. But the other branch is the ventral vagal, and that's a much more interesting branch, and what I do a lot here. It is our social connectivity. And so it's designed, and all this heart rate variability and all these measures of, how much parasympathetic versus sympathetic dominance do we have in our system. How much are you really using your dorsal system to go through the world, your fight, flight, fear system, versus your heart?
What are the differences between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems? The parasympathetic nervous system, PNS, controls homeostasis and the body at rest, and is responsible for the body's rest and digest function. The sympathetic nervous system, however, or SNS, controls the body's responses to perceived threat and is responsible for the fight or flight response. Before we hear Doug break down these systems, I remember a video I watched where Will Smith talks about achieving greatness in an interview.
Greatness is not this wonderful, esoteric, elusive, God-like feature that only the special among us will ever taste. It's something that truly exists in all of us. It's very simple. This is what I believe, and I'm willing to die for it.
Yeah.
Period. It's that simple.
I know who I am, and I know what I believe.
I know who I am, I know what I believe.
That's all I need to know.
And that's all I need to know. So from there, you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is we make the situation more complex than it has to be.
Because we're looking for complexity. There's got to be something complex to understand.
It can't be that easy.
Making things complex is what we really like to do. Maybe because it makes us sound smart, or maybe because we don't know any different. So, these systems, fight, flight, freeze versus your heart system, how are they different for driven people?
I tend to believe, just in my work, that this heartfelt wiring, I really have your back, that entrepreneurial driven, and then we make crazy commitments to people. Like, yes, I'll do it. But many people burn us, and we can't believe they do that to us. Yeah. And that they're wired differently. But this, joke I always say from stage, my kids are in the street, and here comes a car. It is a biological reflex for me to go and get them.
Yes.
That is coming from this other thing that's overriding my fight and flight. My wife is in the street and a car comes. There's this hesitance and bouncing back and forth. Do I do that? But that's the two systems.
Those two systems. I hope that makes sense, because understanding your intuition is as important as practicing your use of this powerful system we call intuition, especially as an entrepreneur.
And so, what is intuition is this other system. And, it's this other way of actually working our way through the world. And, some of the speakers, some of the entrepreneurial driven guys that are speakers from stage or selling from stage guys are just magicians at how they can read the audience, and, or sales guys, how you can read, the banker, are they going to say yes or no? And then adapting your behavior and weaving it through that, and not really clear how you did that, but you just knew it. That's this deeper thing. So that is part of being driven.
So there are two types of people that Doug identifies in his research: the people that are driven versus the ones that are not. I'm not sure if I've said this before in this series, but the reason I started this is because a few people that I have left this world for another dimension were really close to me. And they did so because this dimension or world was too hard for them. The BBC did a report on student suicide, and here's what a close bunch of people to the students had to say.
My heart was pounding like It was like I'd been like electrocuted or something. Like I was just so tense.
They told me to smash the door down and get in there. And then it got really scary.
When I got the inkling that something was wrong, I just tried to call her and call her and call her and call her, and I must have called her about 50 times.
He says, "Are you the biological mother of Stafford James Osgood?"
I don't know how to tell you this, but your brother isn't alive anymore.
I'm sorry to tell you, but Lucy's dead.
I've had very close friends and family members kill themselves. And what if tomorrow someone came up to me and said that they were thinking about suicide? How could I deal with that? What would my next step be, doctor? What would you do if someone came up to you and said that?
So, to kill oneself. I say that in my book, and I'm careful with it, more careful with it now these days. I often used to more often, have people come in and say either they hate themselves or they want to kill themselves. I want to kill myself. And my response is, I will show you how. And so what that is literally getting them to step away from themselves. What is the self? Is it the narrative in your head? Is it the way I feel in my body? Is it my wife? Is it my kid? What is the self? Out of that, and I've gone down 10,000 rabbit holes looking for the answer, not even knowing the question, but that ability for us to logically understand that there is no self.
What if you couldn't identify with your nationality going forward? I mean, what if there was really no boundaries? What if you couldn't use what you've done in your life to identify to others how awesome you are? I mean, what if there was really no boundaries?
In 2015, Dr. Michael Freeman of the University of San Francisco conducted a survey of 292 entrepreneurs, which showed that 49% had reported mental health concerns.
I think, Doug, talking about us having the ability to logically understand that there is no self is not as easy as it sounds. I struggled with this, but I'm slowly wrapping my head around this idea. I really want to dive deeper into our two operating systems so that we can identify which one is dominant when it comes to certain decisions that we make.
It is a weird biological twist of trying to manage two different operating systems that are working simultaneously, taking us through this world. So very simply, there's an operating system basically below the nose, and it's the reptilian brain. It's very much like a recording device. And this is the epigenetics. Very simply, you touch a hot stove and every single cell along the nerve pathway to the spine remembers that experience. And so it's recorded in the genes, literally, hits the spine or the original mind, and that sends back an impulse to contract muscles. And so that's called a reflex. And it's a reflexive recording system that either gets you in the morgue or, you can stay alive a long time as long as that system's intact. Doesn't get people in therapy. What gets people in therapy is not this hardware system. It's literally hardware, hardwired into the body. Directly above that sits this limbic cluster.
What does the limbic cluster do?
What the limbic cluster does, it writes software through our senses. And so, touch the hot stove, this thalamus and these 13 component parts write literally a software code for square metal box with 4 burners. As long as we are alive, we have this invisible radar then, and the subconscious is not a mystery. It's right below your nose. And it is constantly looking out for patterns that match. When a pattern is matched, this invisible radar sends a physical ping into the body. And we feel a little bit of that trauma. So you look at a stove, it can be a glass top with nice painted lines or a 1945 retro. As long as it's close enough, we will feel the danger. Brilliant system. That's the subconscious. It's working below the nose constantly. Thank goodness it is a real-time operating machine.
Okay, so that operating system keeps us safe. What about the other one?
The other system, which is much newer, is a time machine. And so we have this neocortex or new brain sitting on top of this that is literally running this software constantly, patterns, and all this noise in your head is a problem solver for things that don't exist right now. And they're creating these patterns, hot stoves, in your body, and you feel that ping all the time. That's called anxiety.
When we come back, how we are like an elephant with a bunch of monkeys on our head, convincing us that going to the gym in January this year will be different from all the other times we have tried to make going to the gym a habit.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
The main objective of this audio documentary is to bring together entrepreneurs and creatives who share similar values in a place where conversations can be had without judgment. A place where our listeners can give us constructive feedback to improve the show with topic and guest recommendations. For access to this space, go to mustamplify.com/POE and click the button.
Before the break, we were addressing our two operating systems from a biological standpoint and how the two operating systems interpret the same event. But Dr. Douglas Brackmann talks about the monkey mind quite a lot in the first part of this conversation, and I've heard him address the two operating systems by comparing them to an elephant who has to deal with a bunch of monkeys. Doug?
So I keep a very simple model for just understanding what is all that. Why am I so? Well, you're just scared of what? And you can come up with 10,000 reasons in your monkey mind. And so the monkey elephant, and this is another great psychologist, and he was just a psychologist. He's not a messiah figure. It's a guy named Siddhartha, the Buddha, noticed that we are very much like Indian elephants being trained by a whole bunch of monkeys sitting up on top of its head. And all of these monkeys, some of them big giant gorillas with sticks and little nails on the end of the stick, poking the elephant, trying to control it. And this is really the core of my dissertation, my doctoral work 25 years ago, was why does January suck at the gym? Yeah. Is because everybody's monkey mind convincing the elephant that it's okay and good and going to be different this time to go to the gym. But what happens in February, March, April, usually most people don't even remember their New Year's resolutions by February. It's wild. The elephant takes over. And the elephant starts to resist continuing that behavior. Then, very quickly, for most people, the monkey mind will kick in and you'll have the rationalization justification why it's okay to eat the bag of chips and not go to the gym, and I'll do it later or maybe tomorrow. I went yesterday and I'm still whatever, just to keep this elephant, and so the classic question is, which one are you?
Dr. Doug's book is called Driven, Understanding and Harnessing Your Genetic Gifts. I've heard a few different ways to explain the brain and the mind and the body. But when I heard Doug talk about this for the first time and explain it using the monkeys and the elephants, it kind of made a lot of sense to me. As I understand it, my body, or the elephant, remembers patterns and things I've done over and over again. When changing habits, the initial inertia I feel is because my body is so used to things done in a certain way because I've done them over and over again. The monkey or monkeys is my brain coming up with a variety of thoughts through this whole process. In volume 3, Alder Karen said this about the brain and the mind.
And this is where the relationship with my brain changed, right? Now I look at my mind as I look at myself, like I am in my mind. I have thoughts and feelings in my mind. And then my brain my brain has thoughts and feelings in my mind, right? But sometimes the brain gets just a little too simple for life.
So which one are you? Are you the monkey or are you the elephant?
Are you the monkey or are you the elephant? And that's always it is a trick question, because yes, you are both. You are both of these things and neither. And it's that third element of neither that creates insight. You know, the Buddha called it vipassana or vipassana. It literally means the ability to step out of both the monkey mind of noise and chatter and experiencing the impulses in the elephant. And we have an impulse to go towards something or an impulse to go away from something. And feeling that and meeting that with curiosity is really this logical understanding that is this pathway to all change. And the problem is that we avoid stoves whether they're hot or not.
Change. It seems like that is another thing that our limbic brain does not like and resists, especially if there is something that triggers a response that makes us feel unsafe in certain scenarios. Like when I was young and this girl made fun of a pimple on my face.
My 6th grade girl that dumped me, I don't want to talk to her. God, that was a long time ago. Yeah, I had a big old zit on my face, and and she said that I had zits and had oil pockets in my, nose, like, woo. Oh, I was a little kid. Just crushed me. For the next, how long ago was that? 40 years now. Every time I see a zit or a spot on my face, it's like, oh, God, I have all of this stuff attached to it, trauma attached to it, that makes me feel like I'm unlovable, not cared about, unheard worthy. She doesn't want me in her tribe. And so, I wash my face and I do all these things, but that is just a way of going through the world, of believing that experience will continue. And so I think this fear is triggering these underlying driven genetics and creating this, new way of being in the world to adapt to this potential thing that's coming. But the world's never been safer. And it's this ability to see that's the elephant, trying to heal your trauma, trying to work through this, repeated patterns. And that's the classic, when you get tested, if you fail the test, you got to take it again.
Yeah.
And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. But feeling that impulse in the body and then being able to use the monkey mind in a different way.
Yes.
Of discernment of, is the stove even hot? And you feel the resistance or the reaction, but is it really hot? And you can feel that curiosity start to kick in. More importantly, it's called humility.
What do you mean by humility, Doctor?
And humility, or being humble, simply means that you have the capacity to be honest with yourself. And I say it all the time. It's a magic day in therapy when your therapist tells you you're full of shit. But we're all full of shit.
Yeah.
Just don't believe it. And discerning reality, or seeing that we're not really living in the outer world. We're living through a projection of our feelings. Then that ability to actually feel the present moment and then move into the next moment differently. You are literally rewiring the trauma out of the body.
Yeah.
And epigenetically, it's so wild to be alive right now, because you can pinprick babies in Israel, and we're up to 5 generations now. Their great grandfather was in the Holocaust, only looking at their blood samples. And so genetically you can see, and it makes sense as an animal, that we're wired through our genetics and through our mother's uterine environment for the world we're going to go into, assuming the world's not going to change that much.
Dr. Michael Freeman's 2015 study showed that entrepreneurs were significantly more likely to report a lifetime history of depression, ADHD, substance abuse conditions, and bipolar diagnosis.
Like genetics, patterns and belief systems get passed down from one generation to the other. If while you were growing up to celebrate a birthday or an achievement, you went for a hike or camping, that would be something that you would love to pass down to the next generation. And there would be nothing wrong with that. But what if you always thought that the world was out trying to get you? Or that rich people were bad people? What if there was a belief system that has been around you and that was just part of what your life used to be? I was always thought that the best way to make sense of what was going on in my mind was to close my eyes and meditate. Which Dr. Doug flatly disagreed with me on. Because
we often don't feel the reward because we're on to the next thing and on to the next thing and on to the next thing. But as we drop out of that intense state of hyperfocus and you come back, there's an opportunity for driven people to really have a different way of being in the world. And I backed into this with guns and started to pair up. Longtime meditation practitioner, and meditation is very misunderstood. Most driven people hate it as it's taught, whether it's an app that you're supposed to listen to and watch, it makes us want to break things, or closing your eyes if you're driven. That's the other thing. I strongly say don't do that because it really frees our monkey mind just to think. And our thinking goes nuts. We're occipitally dominant, meaning we use our eyes to go through the world. And when we pair that with a very particular style of breathing and use it to focus on something, we immediately can hack into our neuropeptide Y, particularly if you're really driven.
Do you remember the start I told you that Dr. Doug taught me to meditate at gunpoint? The whole idea of that exercise was so that I could feel that I was in the zone or I could achieve a state of flow. So why a gun? How American do you gotta be to use a gun to achieve peace and feel reward?
And so it's that, you're in the zone. You don't have to be going down a double black diamond on a snowboard to be in the zone. If you're not in the zone doing that, you're going to die. If you're not doing that, when you're in a big wave, you're going to die. But you can access that no matter what the environment is. So the gun is one of the best ways to do that because there is no recoil in the present moment. 90% of the time when I have a woman there, she will outshoot every single guy. Even if she's never shot a gun, particularly if she's never shot a gun. Why? They follow directions.
This was so interesting to hear because everyone in the room, which was Rochelle, my wife, James Whitaker, who's an amazing author and speaker, and myself, everyone in the room recoiled when Doug said that women are better at shooting a gun because they follow directions. And then he told us this.
They don't have ego wrapped up in it the way men do. And there's an example I use in my book of she was an extraordinary person, but she was an Olympic snowboarder and very driven young lady. But she comes off the gun after hitting this target at 1,000 yards. And as she's coming off the gun, just feeling alive, feeling it's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. She hit it 4 or 5 times. She puts up 4 fingers to the Navy SEAL that was walking up to shoot next. And he went, yeah. But his battle, I must hit it 4. I must do better than her. Oh, come on. First time you could physically see his monkey and elephant battling. And that is this thing that keeps us from actually experiencing life. That if I don't, then I will.
Oh my God, the number of times I haven't attempted something because of some bullshit story I made up in my mind is countless. I think we worry about what it's going to look like to some random other person that we truly forget what we have done in the past and what we've accomplished. And we also have no idea what our potential really is. Like in Volume 5, when Dave Meltzer said,
And I know that my human perspective cannot even fathom my potential. So only thing I can do is accelerate my trajectory towards my potential to see how closely I can get to infinitum.
And hustle porn. Hustle porn is everywhere on social, and it seems to be a real thing.
Yeah, busy versus hustle. And hustle is this, it got things going, and it's hard to define. Oftentimes it's, workaholism. And, farmers would love to label that as something bad or wrong. Right. And as a driven person, I got 5 different companies going and all this stuff going all the time. And it's, do I need that as a driven person? Yes. You do need that. And it's okay to be busy and have multiple projects. The way I, talk about it in my book, it's friends, family, fitness, finance, fun, faith, intimacy, finance, and health. I mean, we have these basic categories in our world, but driven people are famous for beating the crap out of 2 of them and ignoring the others until, oh my God, I got to do this. And then we leave those and jump to. And so really it's all about balance. Balance is crap. As a driven person, you'll never have balance, but I'm working towards it. Sure. And I set up a process to remind myself that I do have kids, that I do have health, that I do have these needs that need to be paid attention to. And so hustle for one thing or hustle for the whole thing. And that ability to see that I am okay in all of them, getting better.
I had to ask someone with 2 PhDs and multiple publications, what was it that we as driven people were forgetting to do or ignoring?
So I hear this often with people that are first starting with me, that if I give up my drive to achieve, it's, if I really give up all of my fear, I won't be successful. That is the farthest thing from the truth. But as a driven person, we are naturally wired for skepticism. We don't believe anybody. Once you start to experience the reward, that if you just follow the process and keep things simple, you'll hit a target at a mile away. No way, really? Yeah. And then you feel it and like, whoa, just feel it. And they feel that sense of, whoa, this is a different kind of reward. You don't have to go to the gym and kill yourself every day. You'll actually get stronger and better if you just follow a process gently along the path. Very simply, it's practice and practice and practice and practice, having faith that the results will be there if I just optimize the process. Sure. And the results can always be better. Yeah. So I'm looking at the process as the focus rather than the actual result. The result is simply a measurement of the process rather than the process being the goal, or the process is the goal, not the result. And once we find it and start to feel it, and we can get into this, it is just, it's mastery. We get into that mastery mind's, way of being in the world, where everything we do, we look at a way of, how can I make this better? How can I have better relationship with my kids, with my wife, with my money, with my fitness, with my body, with my whatever. That I, had the pleasure of watching just people transform their lives. And this shit works.
My relationship with myself, until very recently, was not the best. I wouldn't let anyone else treat me the way I would treat myself. I did not love myself. And for someone who still doesn't really entirely know what that means to truly love myself, I understand if that doesn't make sense to you. But I know this, because I love myself more these days, I'm a better person to other people. And you need to know this. We are all trying really hard to achieve some sort of balance.
This is your life today. This is it. And, but one day when I finally, my kids are this and I can do that and vacation then, and maybe, And, Monday through Thursday, I am much more finance and fitness and these things focused, where family and that come Friday and Saturday, but they're all being paid attention to. And, this new book that I'm coming out with is really about building context for your life rather than a process. It's, first thing in the morning, I meditate for an hour, and that's personal time. Then I have some family time. Then I have work time. And then I have, I'm not following the exact schedule. I'm building context for what I'm supposed to be doing now.
Coming up on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I'm going to do that. Right now, my body is responding to that. I'm freaking out because it puts me in a place of non-mastery.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Yeah, everything's in flow, but I actually don't like those moments. I think that's the tough point for a lot of people is they follow their passion, they wind up in a tough spot. Is that what we're really actually after? Like, really?
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I interviewed Dr. Douglas Brackmann because he went from being diagnosed with ADHD and living in his car at 17 to becoming a leading psychologist to some of the most successful and driven entrepreneurs, pro athletes, executives, and top performers in the planet. He has written the very successful book, Driven, Understanding and Harnessing the Genetic Gifts Shared by Entrepreneurs, Navy SEALs, pro athletes, and maybe you. He has 20 years experience as a Zen practitioner, founder of the Brackmann Group, a specialized performance consulting firm that works exclusively with highly driven individuals, a coach, sounding board, and friend.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
This is a Must Amplify production. Special thanks to every guest expert that has appeared on the show. Editing and sound design by Jake Ellison. Voiceover by Sonia Stone. Fact voiceover by Kaylee Bunnyman. Guest research and content by Claire Gould. Project managed by Shannon Morrison. Produced and hosted by me, Ronsley Vaz. For more episodes and where to listen, go to mustamplify.com/POE.
Hey, it's Kaylee from Must Amplify. I'm the sound engineer for this volume of Psychology of Entrepreneurship. I'm a part of the team that made this production come alive. Our team consists of members from all around the globe, with our headquarters based in West End, Brisbane, Australia, the land of the drop bear. For more about the cool stuff that we're up to and to work out of our studios, head to mustamplify.com.
You still listening? Thanks for sticking around. Here's a little gift for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is take 2. In case it's not on the record, Jake fucked up. Oh my God, the number of times I haven't attended. Bleh.
Dr. Michael Freeman's 2015. Okay.
What are the differences between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic?
Dr. Michael Freeman's 2000.